Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and today I thought I'd give my first impressions of Nikke now that I've kind of finished the story here up through chapter 36. Now I want to preface this with the fact that I was given an account that had been started on day 1 of this game coming out, so you're not going to be completing chapter 36 if you're a new player kind of looking at this for a new player experience, but I do understand what the new player experience is, and I will give my thoughts on that as well when it comes to that, because I know about the 160 wallet and all that when it requires. But for now, I thought I'd go on the overall of the game. So I'd go over what I think of the story as my first impressions, what I think of the gacha system, the shop, and just the new player experience in general. So first thing I'll go over will be the story, which right now it's up through chapter 36. So I know chapter 37 and 38 will be coming with the 2.5 anniversary. So I don't have any knowledge of that. But overall, on the story, I mean, it's been great. One thing that you see people complain about in some of the other waifu games, excluding Girls Frontline 2, because Girls Frontline 2 is good, but you have some of those that are just cash grabs. It's all about the fan service, and then the story's pretty terrible. Nikke has a really good story with it. I've liked it all the way from chapter 1 through chapter 36. I haven't really done any of the event stuff yet, and I'm going to be getting into that because that gives a lot of the context and background on the characters and actions that happened within the stories. So I haven't seen any of the events yet, but I do have a general understanding of them, and they're going to be, I can tell that they're going to be just as good as the main story. So if you want a waifu game, you like waifu games, and you want to actually have good story, this is definitely one of those games that I find is very good for it. Now, when it comes to the new player experience, now I got to skip all that, like I mentioned right at the beginning. I was given an account that was about level 300 already on the synchronization, so I skipped what would be considered the most difficult part for a new player, which is going to be once you get to level 160, you have to get max dupes. I believe it's 5 characters, or not max dupes, but max limit break, which I believe is 4 pulls of the same character in order to bypass that wall. Now, that is going to be painful for those that get to it, and that's probably the hardest part. And once you get past that, it's just now at that point just farming a ton of core dust so you can keep getting levels from there. One thing that I do like, though, in the system is we just saw at the 2.5 anniversary, they are making ways to get that a little bit easier. I mean, right now you're going to be able to get one of those right off the bat if you start now with the 2.5 anniversary, because they're going to give free SSRs that you can just select the same one over and over to get max limit break, which would be the general advice for any new player, is to do that so you can get one of them out of the way right off the bat. But then also they have in the system here, and this is where I'm going to kind of go into the gacha as well. My thoughts on that is on the standard banner, all of the units, well, most of the units, there are some limited ones like the summer and winter ones and collabs, but other than those, most of them get added into the standard banner essentially. And so when you look at the probabilities, every character is in here. Now you will see wishlist not included. This is, I think, huge for this. And this is something I wish sort of Convalaria had, because they add all of the older units into the standard banner. What they have is a wish list, because they have so many characters now. You can select from all the different manufacturers, select 5 that you want to be your targets. And so when you pull an SSR on this banner, you are going to get one of the units from your wish list. All the others are excluded. So if there's a character you're specifically targeting, like I want to get more copies of Helm to kind of completely max her out, I have her on here. And if it pulls, I have a chance of getting it. It's still fairly low because you have a wide selection of characters here, but this is a way to target those dupes a little bit easier, and you are giving a crap ton of these standard pulls through the game as you play it. Now, this is one that I would say you don't want to pull your gems on. This is only use standard tickets, but you get a ton of them. And so this is going to be a great way to accumulate them as well as they have this bonus recruit here as well, which is another system, which I actually have one available, where you can just select one of these characters and max them out. So it'll be a slow process, but you can work on maxing these characters for that max limit break as well. And then you have, as you start getting dupes, you can get some of them in the shop as well when you look at the shop. So even though it was more tedious, especially in the beginning, to get past that wall, they have started and added a lot of things to make it not near as bad. And so overall, for a new player on that breaking the wall, I don't think it's as bad as it could be, especially with all the systems they have in here. So overall, I do like that. Now, kind of going more into depth on my thoughts on how I think the gacha system is. I think this is probably my favorite gacha system of any that I've played since I've really kind of come back to gacha games. I really like, now it's a lot different, so it's really hard to compare it. I know a lot of people were, because I played Girls Frontline 2, were comparing this game to Girls Frontline 2's gacha system, and a lot of them were saying it's not as good in some extents, but it's also good in other extents. One of the big things is it does have a significantly higher probability pull rate of 4%. And now the best units, which are generally the pilgrim units, have a lower percent chance, which it's kind of hard to tell here with the wish list system, but you have that 4% chance, with 1% of that chance being to get a pilgrim unit, which are kind of your overpowered ones. And so they're not all of them. There are some that are not pilgrims that are the OP ones, but slowly as they start adding in pilgrims and more overspecs, which are like the upgraded versions of older characters that get added into that pull run, are going to be at 1%. So you can kind of, if you want to kind of look at it that way, think of it as like a 1% rate to get the top units, but you have the other 3% that you're also going to get great units. And with that 4% rate, you're actually actively going to get dupes on characters. A lot of games, you don't really care about dupes as much. This one, you can make the characters work completely fine without dupes, but you are going to get dupes over time. And that's one thing I actually like too. This is going to be a fairly easy game to get like a majority of the units. Like the ones I don't own here, I'm going to get a lot of them when I pull here, because I have a ton of pulls here. And as I get them, it's, if I don't get one of the units that I already have on this wish list, I'm going to get one of the ones I don't have. So overall, I think it's going to be, I really like the gacha system because you can just get a lot of characters. You get a lot of pulls. I mean, just looking at the half anniversary live stream, it's, I think, like 130, 180 pulls that they're going to be giving us over the course of it. And that's where we go into the other banner, which is the one that has the, I wouldn't call it limited, but the targeted pulls. These are the ones that we're getting a crap done on half anniversary. And so this one is a little bit more unique, and it's got a little bit, I'm going to maybe be making a video on my kind of thought processes and how to approach this one, as because of the pilgrim units being the OP ones and having the lower rate of 1%, it kind of makes it where you really want to use these tickets in a selective way. Because right now we have a new character on here, Crust, and well, from my understanding, she's not that good of a character, but let's say she is a decent character, and she is one that you want to target and pull for. There is the negative, is that she is not a pilgrim, and so she does have that higher rate. I believe it's a 2% rate to get her versus the 1% of a pilgrim. So it's more advantageous in a lot of cases that you may want to just let them fall off onto the standard one and then put them on the wish list so that you can save all of your targeted pulls for the more limited or harder to get units. And then you also have the pity system in here as well, which I really like their pity system. I think it's also the best on that, in that regard. When you pull on this, you're getting what these are called, these like golden mileage tickets, and this is effectively the pity in the game. The big negative is there is no guarantee if you lose your 50-50. So if I pull for her, I can pull 1,000 pulls and not get her, technically. Statistically, unlikely with a 2% rate of getting the character. You're very likely to get them after so many pulls just because of the law of large numbers. It's extremely unlikely to go a crap ton of pulls without getting them at a 2% rate for getting the banner up character. But they do have a pity system in here, and it is through these gold mileage tickets. So while you don't get a guarantee after you've lost 50-50s, you do have the pity that if you really, really want the character, after 200 pulls, you'll have accumulated 200 of these gold mileage tickets, which you can then buy the character in the shop outright. The great thing with this pity system is those tickets, you have them. I mean, that you get to keep them. There is no, I accidentally won the pity. So, like, people that like to build pity in games, as they say, you can kind of do that in this, because you can pull in this banner and get those golden tickets, and then you can keep accumulating them. After 200 tickets, you can go up to 400, 600. Just keep stockpiling the golden tickets while you pull on this banner, and then when you need them, you can use that pity. I really, really like that system versus the system where you can press your luck basically on every banner if you really want to, and not worry about accidentally getting the character, even though you just wanted to build pity, if you're one of those people that has that habit of wanting to just pull on every banner. And then when the big units come out, the general advice is to use these tickets for those ones that have like the 1% rate, or your collab units. If you're not going to be able to get the collab unit in time, which is almost certainly never going to rerun, you can use these golden tickets to guarantee to get them as well in the shop. So overall, I do really like the gacha system in this game. I mean, the 4% rates, like you're winning all the time on the pulls. And yes, a lot of the SSRs you're not going to use anymore. They have less value, but it just feels good on that system of you're constantly getting new SSRs or dupes for your SSRs in this game. You're pulling a lot more, which is one of the things I think a lot of us like within gacha games. And there actually is a value to every pull that you get. And that'll kind of come into my other part that I really like about this game is I feel like you're always gaining progress. One of the negatives I'd say about Girls Frontline 2 is once you get to the max level and you start maxing out your characters, like Klukai have pretty much got maxed out. I'm slowly, like, you're at that end game, and now it's just kind of going through the motions, and you're really no longer, you're making progress on your account through events and stuff, but there's really no making progress in terms of like leveling or getting more powerful, really, ultimately, other than getting new characters and kind of getting more synergetic teams. I really like that this game pretty much has infinite, it's not infinite, but for someone that's free to play or even a medium spender, you pretty much have infinite progress that you're working on, and that is through their leveling system on this synchro device, where you pretty much can, your max level goes up based on how many units you have, how many dupes of the units you have, and all that. And from what I understand, this scales up to, like, I think with the current amount of Nikkes in it, it's like close to 1,000 is the max level cap. If you're like a Leviathan type spender and spending massive amounts of money and have like all the characters, like all of the max duped, you have actually a really high max level you can get. And so you're pretty much always grinding to increase your overall power, which I actually really, really like in this game. I like that kind of infinite scaling type thing that you see with some games. And so I think that's great, which also brings in the matter when we're coming to here. I really love this system as well. Once you got past that 160 wall and you get to level 200, which is the max level you can level a Nikke up to, you no longer have to worry about leveling the Nikkes themselves. You now just focus on leveling up this. You enhance your synchro level, and whatever units you put in here get brought all the way up to the max level. So like I have 3 openings here. If there's a character that I want to put in here, I haven't leveled any of these characters right here, but if I put them in there, they're going to immediately go to level 341. I really like that. So you've pretty much, once you get to this point at the end game, you've passed the point of needing to level the characters, and your complete focus is leveling on this. And then there's other systems in here that increase your power when you actually look at the Nikkes. So like you have the dolls that you can equip them, like, and then like with Helm, the one that you see here on the menu, some of them, it's kind of like the expansion keys in Girls Frontline 2, as they're wanting to power up certain characters like her. You have this, where you have like a favorite item you can put on her. And so that's a way that you can increase power. You have the gear system. Gear system, I will say, is pretty tough on the trying to get the best gear. But I would say it's better than a lot of systems out there. You can hyper-focus a character if you really like them to max them out. Like, well, I wouldn't say, if you want to max, like, get perfect stats on them, you're going to spend a lot of resources. It's definitely not advisable. But there is a way to really min-max the sub-stats without having to just keep farming for new gear. Because the big thing is how their gear system works, and I really like it, is you just get the right piece of gear on them, take it to max level 5, then you have this overload, you overload it, and that's when you get your sub-stats here, and you just re-roll those sub-stats using these. And I'm not going to go over that systems here, there's plenty of videos on that, but you can, over time, you can lock the ones that you really like, and then you can re-roll the other ones, and so you can do that as a way to really min-max specific characters if you want to. Now, it gets more expensive to re-roll them once you start locking stuff, but it is an option if you really want to heavily invest in a character and kind of get the best of the best on the stats. And so I really like that one as well there overall. So I think the whole grinding of the characters is great as well. So that's most of my thoughts there. And then when it comes to the story on this, like I mentioned in the beginning, I've beat Chapter 36, but as a new player, you're not going to very easily or anytime soon. But that's the one thing I actually really like about this kind of story and their hard mode. I'm really far behind in the hard mode still. is that it's actually hard in that extent. Like, you're not going to get to a point, at least unless you're spending a lot of money, especially as a new player, where you just overpower everything and there's no challenge anymore. One thing that I see a lot of people talking about now with Girls Frontline 2, especially people that decided to hyper invest in the Klukai like myself, there is really no difficult content anymore. You put Klukai in it in Girls Frontline 2 and you annihilate that content. That's not the case here. Now, once you get more to the higher level, like I was able to beat everything because this is an account from day one, but I kind of held off as much as I could, and the boss fights and all that are challenging in the story unless you are significantly over it, where you're actually having to manually play it and still think still. And hard mode is even harder, especially if you're wanting to push all the way to the end, because from what I've seen is only like the top spenders are beating the last chapter hard mode at this point because of how much power you need to actually overcome the bosses and stuff there. And so that is really good. I mean, there's always a challenge in this game. And then you have all the other modes, like you have the raids, like Union raids, which will be similar to the Platoon boss battles in Girls Frontline 2, where you have to do that. You also have solo raids, which are similar, and they're difficult. I mean, I did it when I first started, and yeah, they're not easy, and you're always going to have challenging content in this game. And it doesn't, to me, doesn't feel tedious either. I know a lot of people on Girls Frontline 2 are finding the Platoon boss battles that get a little bit more tedious now, having to just kind of repeat the process. I think it's a little bit different in this because it's a kind of a different gameplay. In Girls Frontline 2, you're basically just repeating the same steps over and over once you've got the rotation down in the tactical gameplay, so it kind of wears down on you doing the same thing over and over with the Platoon boss battles, which is what they don't think. Like here, it's a little bit different because it's like a rail shooter, and so it doesn't feel like it's the same every time, at least to me. I know some people might get bored of it because you still point and shoot at the same character, but it feels different even when you're doing the same fight multiple times. But then they also have systems to skip doing it multiple times, which is like in different things, which will be a little bit easier to show here, like your gear farming area. On this difficulty, after you do it once for the day and you get like the highest level you're going to be able to get when you fight the boss, you can use this quick battle and it'll just repeat what you did that first fight. And so you don't have to do it multiple times unless you're trying to do a little bit better on the next one. And so overall, I like that. They have a lot of those convenience features in here, and they're always constantly adding new stuff. And then let's think. The last thing that I haven't talked about yet, but I like to because I'm a spender in these kinds of games, is the cash shop. Now, a lot of people were telling me it's not as good as Girls Frontline 2's. Now, it's a little tricky to compare it to other gachas. I think that's the hardest part because their standard tickets to me, the standard tickets have way more value than in most other gachas because they put all the characters in the standard banner. And then their targeted banner, I feel like those tickets have even more value, especially when you have like the big collab units and that. And so it can be a little bit tricky to compare the two, but I will say when it comes to the spending on the packages, from my own opinion, there are significantly less on those targeted polls value. Like I bought this one. This is probably like the closest one to the same value on a targeted banner as Girls Frontline, because it's basically $1 per poll for the targeted banner, while these other ones get to kind of insanely high, like insane pay per poll. So yes, on the targeted ones, it's definitely better in like Girls Frontline 2. But like I said, the standard banner actually ends up having a majority of the units in it, and so I actually put those polls at a higher value. And they do have actually, when it comes to your value, I think they have decent value on some of them. Now your beginner ones, they're always the best ones of like any gacha. They go away once you get them, so you don't even need to look at those. But on these, I mean, you have some like in the daily. If you really wanted to get one that was cheaper than $1 per poll in those standard polls, you can get it daily with 1 and 60 credits there. Like, I think that one's all right if you're wanting to be kind of a medium spender. Kind of the same thing with some of the monthly ones, like the recruitment package one. Here you're paying $15 for, like, what, 24 polls? And so those, like I said, those are standard polls. They're more valuable than, I would say, other games with standard tickets, but they're still not as good as limited. And I think that's where a lot of people will say the cash shop is not as good as a medium spender. For me personally, though, I probably will end up buying some of those over time, just because I like the idea of pulling on the standard banner. The wish list system and all that on here is just crazy on what you're able to get with your standard banner pulls versus another game. Girls Frontline 2 right now, I think the standard banner is great still, but that's because it has great units on it and you can target the unit you want on it, but it's not every unit. This one's every unit except the limited ones that will repeat, as well as the collab units. So yeah, it's overall great. I think their cash shop is okay. Now when it comes to the skins, now that's where they make their money. I can say the skins are where Nikke makes their money in this game. I think this is why you'll see some of the good ones, like Girls Frontline 2 and Nikke, can kind of get away with a little bit better gacha systems. It's because they make a lot of money on their skins. Seeing the price on them, especially, I think people are saying it's $70 to get the gacha ones, like the gacha skins themselves. Which, if I can compare it to a game that I played recently, sort of Convolaria, when it had like the little gambling one where the skin was the top one and you could potentially get it in like $10 or the equivalent of 10 pulls, but you're almost certainly going to pay like the equivalent of $60 to get it if you go all the way through the gacha until it's guaranteed. And so their skins are quite expensive in this, at least the best of the best ones on the gacha system. They do have the normal ones in the shop, but those ones are $20 as well. So skins are quite pricey in this game, but that's just where they make their money in these waifu games. You don't need the skins. I mean, when you look at the characters in their default skins and when they're playing, you don't need the skins. They look fine without the skins. The skins are crazy and really good, but they actually look really good without them as well. So to me, it's not that big of a deal that the skins are expensive. I mean, that's where they make their money, and the people that are willing to spend for those, hey, they're supporting the game, is the way I see it. So I think I've pretty much hit everything on my thoughts on there. I mean, a lot of the other stuff, like events and all that, are great. Good way to get your currency for leveling your account. But yeah, overall, that's kind of my first impressions. I know it's pretty long-winded here, because there is a lot in the game. I'm still learning quite a bit, because right now, if you're a new player starting, there are a lot of Nikke characters in this game. They're not complex, too. I like that. The thing is, there's just so many you have to learn all the characters and their skills and how they can kind of interact, and as well as some like mechanics. So like, I'll give Crown an example, one of them kind of looking into, because she's like one of the top characters you're going to want to have. When you like look at their skills, you can read it. Now, one thing I've been told is you always want her on the left, and that is because she has a skill that activates from being healed, but there's nothing that specifically says she needs to be in the left or any of that. It's that she has to be healed. But just part of the mechanics in the game, the left are the ones that are going to primarily are going to get the most heals overall. One, they get attacked the most, and so you have people that have like conditions that heal lowest HP, or they may prioritize the ones on the left for some reasons, and so that's why she wants to be on the left. And that's something you kind of got to figure out just from kind of reading on that. And then you have like their burst, or when they basically do their, I don't know if you want to call it their ultimate. They do it in the order left to right, so you may want to order them so they do the correct ones on the timing wise. So it's a little bit, there's a lot to learn in it, and that's kind of what I'm still in the phase of at this point, is learning all their kits and how they interact, so that I can actually make videos on new characters when they come out and how they synergize with others. But it's not too bad, and there's plenty of guides out there, plenty of people willing to help you on the Discord and stuff. So I mean, there's just tons of characters in the game. That's kind of the biggest thing. That's the one negative thing. As the games get older, there ends up being so many characters, it gets hard to really know all the complete synergies until you kind of start to get really good understanding of all the mechanics. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think I've pretty much covered everything as my first impression. I don't want this to go too long, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Just let me know your thoughts in the comments, or if there's anything I missed. But yeah, if you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.